There's an old brick asylum on the outskirts of Hollow Creek, its windows shattered and its walls covered in black mold and faded graffiti. Locals say it was shut down in the late 1950s after a fire gutted part of the east wing, killing several patients who were too heavily sedated to escape. The official report claimed it was an accident. The people who live nearby know better. Teenagers dare each other to go inside after midnight, but few stay longer than 5 minutes. They say the place talks back. One winter night, two amateur ghost hunters, Jared and Mia, decided to test the legend. They carried flashlights, a digital recorder, and more courage than sense. The air inside was damp and heavy, smelling faintly of burned wood and rust. As they walked down the main corridor, their beams lit peeling paint, overturned gurneys, and old wheelchairs frozen in place like forgotten skeletons. Somewhere in the dark, water dripped in slow, uneven beats. Halfway through the hall, Mia froze. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Jared stopped. The silence seemed absolute until it wasn't. Faint at first, like wind moving through cracked plaster, came the sound of voices, a low, urgent whispering. The words weren't in English. They weren't even clear, more like breathy fragments scraping the inside of their skulls. They pressed on, the recorder blinking red in Jared's hand. The whispers followed them. Sometimes they seemed to be coming from a room ahead, sometimes from right behind their ears. Once, Mia swore she felt warm breath on the back of her neck. In the burned east wing, they found the old patient cells. Every door was ajar except one, which was shut tight, its handle scorched black. Without speaking, they both stepped closer. From inside, a voice hissed, loud and distinct this time, "Get out before the fire takes you too." The metal door began to rattle violently. Jared dropped the recorder. The moment it hit the floor, the whispering erupted into shrieks, dozens of overlapping screams, as if the walls themselves were remembering. They ran, not stopping until the asylum was a shadow in the distance. Later, when Jared replayed the recorder, there was only silence. No whispers, no screams, just one short burst of static before it cut off completely. The locals still say if you walk past the asylum on a winter night, you might hear faint voices calling from inside. And if you stay too long, one of them might call your name. If you want, I can also give you SEO, friendly title, description, tags, and hashtags, so this fits perfectly for a YouTube story channel. "Would you like me to prepare those next?" you said. More ChatGPT said, "All right, let's make voices from the abandoned asylum, even longer, darker, and more immersive, keeping that real urban legend feeling but adding extra tension, backstory, and eerie detail. Voices from the abandoned asylum based on a real urban legend on the edge of Hollow Creek, past the dying forest and the cracked asphalt road that no one maintains, stands St. Armin's lunatic asylum, or at least what's left of it. Most of the roof has caved in, ivy claws up its walls, and its skeletal windows gape like empty eye sockets. But the townsfolk avoid it for another reason, because the place is never truly silent. The asylum opened in 1912, meant to house those considered too dangerous for regular society. But doctors of that era had cruel methods: ice baths in winter, electroshock without sedation, and a form of therapy where patients were locked alone in pitch darkness for weeks. The place finally closed in 1958 after the East Wing fire. Official records say a faulty fuse box sparked the blaze, but nurses whispered that a patient known only as Mother Gray lit it herself. She claimed the voices in her head told her to set them free. The fire spread faster than it should have, as though fanned by unseen hands, and dozens of sedated patients never made it out. That's when the voices started. The dare Jared and Mia, amateur ghost hunters, had heard the stories for years. Jared's uncle claimed to have worked construction near the asylum in the 80s and swore he could hear muffled conversations coming from the East Wing, even when the building had no floor in that section. One December night, with fog curling low over Hollow Creek, they drove out to St. Armin's. The headlights caught the old wrought iron gate, bent and hanging from one hinge like a mouth mid-scream. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of mildew and something faintly metallic. They stepped over a collapsed hallway beam, their flashlights jittering across faded murals of smiling nurses and patients. The first voice, it happened just past the admissions desk. Mia thought she heard footsteps behind them. When they stopped, so did the sound. Then came the whisper, low and sibilant, too close for comfort. "Don't look." They both spun around. No one was there, but their beams caught fresh condensation on the cracked plaster wall, like breath had just hit it. The east wing, the deeper they went, the colder it got. Jared's breath began to fog, even though it wasn't freezing outside. In the east wing, the walls were blackened from the fire, and rusted bed frames sat in neat rows, some still with scorched mattresses. A single steel door at the far end stood closed, its paint bubbled and its handle burned black. Jared stepped toward it, recorder in hand. The voice came again, this time louder, clearer. "Get out before the fire takes you too." The handle rattled violently. A sudden heat rolled through the hallway, hot enough to sting their skin. Mia grabbed Jared's arm. "We're leaving, now." The chase as they turned to run, the whispering rose into a chorus. Dozens of voices, male and female, overlapping in desperate pleas and furious commands. "Help us, stay, don't go, burn with us." The sound followed them, bouncing off the walls, growing louder. Jared's flashlight flickered and died just before they reached the exit. They burst outside into the foggy night, panting. The asylum loomed behind them, its shattered windows reflecting faint orange light, like fire trapped inside. The recording later, back at Jared's apartment, they played the recorder. At first, nothing, just their footsteps and breathing. Then, at the exact moment they reached the east wing door, there was a faint voice. It wasn't the get out they'd heard in person. This one was softer, almost tender. "You've brought her back to us." The recording ended with a sharp burst of static. Neither of them could explain it, especially since neither remembered her being with them. Even now, locals claim that if you stand outside St. Armin's at night, you'll hear your own name whispered from the east wing. Some say it's the patients calling for help. Others believe it's the fire's victims searching for someone to take their place. No one stays long enough to find out which is true.